The first Allied shot tore the hospital ship's engines away, and Captain Mara Venn ordered the convoy to accelerate straight at the guns that had fired it. On the bridge of the Wayfarer, every face turned toward her. Ahead, the blue-white drive plumes of the Orison fleet spread across the mouth of the Carthis Passage. 31 silver warships, all carrying the spiral crest of the Selen Compact, shifted into a killing wall. They had guarded Mara's convoy for 11 days. Their crews had eaten at human tables, repaired human engines, and passed frightened refugee children between airlocks when the evacuation docks began to burn. Now their opening salvo had left the hospital ship Kind Harbor tumbling through its own vapor. "Rescue tugs are moving," called Lieutenant Hale from Navigation. "Harbor reports no hull breach. 32 injured. They can't break." A transmission cut across him. Admiral Felvor appeared above the command table, narrow silver face framed by the black collar of Selen Command. The frills along his jaw were folded flat, a sign Mara had learned meant either grief or violence. "Human convoy, reduce thrust and reverse course." His voice was steady. "You will return to Deimos orbit and surrender all vessels to compact custody. Any ship continuing toward the passage will be destroyed." Behind Mara, someone whispered, "He was at dinner yesterday." Mara stared at the Admiral. Less than 9 hours earlier, Vor had stood in this bridge and helped her calculate the convoy's last fuel transfer. He had knelt to speak with a little Selen girl who had lost both parents. When he rose, he had left a blue oath cord tied around the rail beside Mara's chair. The cord was still there. "Admiral," Mara said, "Kind Harbor has no engines. Permit our tugs through your line. No vessel comes closer. You have medical personnel aboard who trained with Harbor's crew." His eyes flickered, no more than that. "Reverse course." Mara muted the channel. The convoy was a ragged chain of 24 ships, freighters, 2 battered escorts, mining haulers packed with pressure cots, the hospital ship, and a Wayfarer at their head. 11,000 civilians rode behind her, most of them Selen. In the holds lay the last living seed vaults from Deimos, 6 atmospheric condensers, and the memory cylinders of towns that no longer existed. Their destination was the neutral world of Pallas, one jump beyond the passage. Behind them, Deimos' swollen sun boiled the space where the evacuation stations had been. The radiation front would reach the convoy in 3 hours. There was nowhere to reverse to. "Captain," Hale said quietly, "the Admiral knows the front's speed. Yes, if we continue, they'll cut us apart." Mara touched the oath cord. Its braided fibers were warm from the bridge lights. Then why did he shoot Harbor's engines instead of its habitat ring? No one answered. She opened a convoy-wide channel. All ships maintain rescue formation. Increase thrust to emergency cruise. Tugs catch Kind Harbor. Escorts hold fire unless I authorize it. The silence lasted half a heartbeat. Then acknowledgements came in, one after another. On the refugee carrier Half-Light, Sen heard the order while standing ankle-deep in water. A coolant pipe had ruptured above the nursery deck. Warm mist filled the passage, and hundreds of Selen children huddled beneath silver blankets while human engineers fought valves designed for a different species. Ilya had once been Dima's ambassador to Earth. Now he held a patch over a split pipe with both hands and watched the ceiling tremble from distant weapons fire. "Toward them?" asked Seli. The girl crouched beside him, clutching a carved shellbird. She was 8, perhaps 9. No one knew exactly, because the records of her coastal district had burned. Pale patterns of fever moved under the skin of her throat. She should have been in a medical cradle, but there were only 40 cradles for 900 children. "Yes," Ilya said. "Are they still ours?" He did not know how to answer. Now the fleet fired again. The deck kicked sideways. Children screamed. Ilya lost his grip, and coolant burst across the passage. A human engineer named Ochoa lunged into the scalding spray, drove her shoulder against the manual wheel, and turned until blood showed through her sleeve. Another engineer sealed the patch. "What did they hit?" Ilya demanded. A voice answered from the wall speaker. "Port communications array. No casualties. Stay clear of the exterior decks." "Communications!" Not the crowded habitat rings. Ilya looked at Sally. The fever patterns at her throat brightened with fear. On the Wayfarer, Mara watched the second salvo scatter molten antennae from Half-Light's spine. Vor was stripping the convoy's engines and sensors one piece at a time. It could have been restraint. It could also have been a butcher, making sure the animals could not run. "Signal," from Palace, Hale said. "Weak. They received our distress call before the array went down. Neutral patrol says they will not enter the passage while compact weapons are active. Expected. Radiation front in 2 hours, 46 minutes. On the command display, the crippled Kint harbor rotated toward them. 2 human tugs burned hard to match it. The Horizon ships tracked both with targeting beams, but did not fire. Mara opened Vor's channel again. "You asked me once why humans keep promises to the dead." The Admiral's expression remained fixed. "This is not the hour for your species' sentiment. You said the dead have no needs. They do not. I told you promises shape the living. I need to know what shaped you in the last 9 hours." For the first time, pain crossed his face. Behind him, on the shattered command deck of his flagship, Mara saw officers standing unnaturally still. A dark figure occupied the observer's station. Not Selen. Its shoulders were too broad, its head crowned by 3 blunt ridges. Then, the image tightened, cropping the figure out. "You have your order," Vor said. The channel died. Hale had seen it too. "Car Dominion." Mara nodded. "An observer doesn't explain 31 ships changing sides," Hale said. "No. But it explains why Vor is choosing every word as if someone else wrote it." The tugs reached Kind Harbor. Magnetic grapples locked against its hull. Their combined engines flared, slowing the hospital ship's spin. The nearest Selen destroyer fired. One tug vanished in a sphere of white gas. On the bridge, Hale made a sound like he had been struck. The tug's pilot was his brother. Mara gripped the edge of the command table as fragments crossed the display. No escape pods appeared. The surviving tug kept its grapple and burned alone, far too small to control Harbor's mass. "Captain," Hale said. His voice shook. "Weapons free." Mara looked at him. "They murdered him." "They fired through the tug's drive cone," Mara said. "What? Put it back. Slow it down." He stared at her, then dragged trembling fingers across his controls. The recording unfolded frame by frame. The destroyer's beam entered the tug's drive flare. An instant before impact, a smaller object burst away from the tug's far side, hidden by glare. An emergency cockpit pod. Its beacon was dark, but it was moving. Hale sank into his chair. "They warned him," Mara said. "Tight beam, maybe. Or the shot was placed to give him time. You don't know he's alive." "No, you're asking me to trust the people shooting at us because they might have missed on purpose." "I'm asking you to keep watching." The destroyer rotated, placing its hull between the drifting pod and the rising radiation. It looked like part of the blockade. It was also a shield. Mara ordered a rescue skiff launched, without a beacon. Then she called the captains of every convoy ship. Their faces filled the command table. Exhausted humans, Selen and 2 shaggy maroon freighter masters who had volunteered at Dema because they owed Vor an old debt. "We have indications the fleet is acting under Car coercion," Mara told them. "We do not know its form. The Car observer aboard Vor's flagship may have control of communications. Admiral Vor is disabling us, but his crews are avoiding civilian compartments when they can. We're continuing at rescue speed," Mara said. No offensive fire, radiators full, sensor beams narrow. Record every target lock and every miss. Razor's face hardened. You're gambling 11,000 lives on hidden mercy. I'm gambling that our allies are still in there, and if you're wrong, then I will give you the release code before they enter lethal range. She ended the conference before fear could become a vote. The convoy flew on. The third salvo came 12 minutes later. It clipped engines, shattered navigation fins, and punched a hole through an empty cargo hold on the freighter Long Promise. One beam struck too close to a habitat ring. 43 refugees died before emergency doors sealed. The Orison fleet was missing on purpose. It was not missing enough. Ilya moved through Half-Light's nursery counting the living. The children had stopped asking what the impacts meant. That frightened him more than their screams. Humans carried the badly fevered toward the ship's central hold, where the seed vaults were kept cold. They gave up their own pressure masks when smoke crept down from the upper decks. Sally followed Ilya until a medical worker tried to guide her to a cot. "No," the girl said. "I have to show him." She pressed the shellbird into Ilya's hand. A thin seam opened along its carved wing. Inside was a coil of blue fiber. "An oath cord. Where did you get this?" Ilya asked. "The Admiral gave it to my mother." "When?" "Before the sky went red. He said I had to carry it to the new water." Ilya lifted the cord. One end had been fused into a tiny black bead, not knotted in the Selen fashion. He touched it and felt a faint vibration. "Did your mother know Admiral Vor?" Selly's throat patterns dimmed. "He was my mother's father." The passage seemed to narrow around him. The Admiral's granddaughter was aboard the convoy. He had fired anyway. Ilya carried Sely and Shellbird to the nearest working transmitter. Half-Light's captain could reach Wayfarer only through a laser relay on the freighter ahead, and the signal broke twice. When Mara's face finally appeared, Ilya held the black bead near the camera. "Captain, this is not decoration. It is an old fleet memory knot. Officers used them before neural interfaces. The Admiral gave one to Selly's mother. Can you read it?" "Not without a naval cradle." Mara raised the blue cord tied beside her chair. "He left one here." Ilya stared. "Bring the ends together." She did. Both fused beads pulsed blue. A line of numbers appeared across the command display. Not a message. Engine temperatures, hull pressures, coolant reserves, life support loads. 31 columns of them, changing by the second. The Orison fleet's private status feed. Mara's engineer bent over the data. "Their reactors are overheating. Badly. Half those ships have less than 2 hours before automatic scram." Ilya understood why the fleet formation looked so perfect. The ships were not maneuvering because they could not afford to. They had come from somewhere at impossible speed. At the bottom of the feed, 4 symbols repeated beside every ship. Ilya read them aloud. "Route command accepted. Custodial seal active." "What does that mean?" Mara asked. "I do not know." But Sally did. "The black ships said it," she whispered. At the station, "They said the routes would burn if grandfather did not bring us back." Ilya felt cold, despite the steam in the compartment. The routes were the deep orbital habitats around Selen's nest world. 4 billion people lived inside them. The car had not merely sent an observer, they held the compact's heart. Mara called Vor again, but the car figure answered. He stepped into full view this time. Prefect Akran wore grey armor polished like stone, with a thin gold control band around one wrist. His species had no visible mouth when silent. Then the plates beneath his jaw opened. "Captain Venn. The Admiral is occupied managing the consequences of your stubbornness. What did you put in the root habitats?" Vor stood behind him, still as a statue. Akran's small eyes narrowed. "So he passed more than affection in those primitive chords." What did you put there? Nothing that was not purchased legally. Car custodial systems were installed during the famine wars, life support, power regulation, orbital stabilization. Your allies mortgaged their survival long before you taught them the romance of refusing debts. Mara understood. You can shut the habitats down, she said. We can correct their orbits. Gravity will do the rest. Vor's frills trembled once. Akran lifted his gold-banded wrist. The control chain requires a living admiral's authorization for fleet actions and a car custodian's assent for habitat safety. A balanced arrangement. He attacks you. His people continue breathing. And if he refuses, one route falls every 12 minutes. The precision of the answer made the bridge go quiet. Why do you want the convoy? Mara asked. The seed vaults belong to us. So do the atmospheric machines and archives. Dima defaulted on its obligations. Gima was murdered. A star is not a witness. No, but 11,000 survivors are. Akran's jaw plates drew together in what might have been amusement. Turn around, Captain. You cannot save the refugees by killing the nest world. The channel closed. Heil projected the passage and the radiation front. We could scatter. Some ships might slip around the blockade. Any fleet vessel that lets us through triggers the custodial seal, Mara said. A root habitat falls. And if they stop us, the front kills us. Yes. Mara studied the fleet data. Temperatures rising. Coolant reserves almost gone. The Orison ships had burned their safety margins to get between the convoy and the passage. Not to ambush them. If Akran wanted easy slaughter, car cruisers could have attacked near Dema. Four had placed his own fleet here, within reach, carrying a hidden status feed and shielding an ejected human pilot. He had obeyed the order in the one way that still left Mara a question to solve. Why are their reactors overheating? She asked. Because they sprinted here, Hale said. From where? He checked the drive records captured before the betrayal. Vector traces point towards Selen. Akran had brought the fleet from the nest world. The ships had crossed 2 unstable currents without refueling. Mara enlarged the convoy manifest. 6 atmospheric condensers, seed vaults, medical reserves, mining equipment. And 18,000 tons of cryogenic hydrogen slush carried to power the condensers after landing on Pallas. Enough coolant to stabilize every ship in Vor's fleet. She began issuing orders. Reza listened in disbelief. You want to refuel them. I want to rescue them. They are currently trying to kill us. They are also the only force close enough to protect the routes if we break the car control. With what miracle? No miracle. Ilya says the custodial systems were installed during the famine wars. Human relief crews helped rebuild the root habitats at the end of those wars. We need their original engineering plans. Those are 60 years old. Then let's hope someone believed in keeping records. Wayfarer aimed at surviving long-range laser at Pallas and sent a narrow burst, not a plea for warships, but a request to relay a query to Earth's civil engineering archive. The answer could not arrive for at least an hour. The radiation front would arrive in less than 2. Mara turned the convoy into a denser formation. Mining haulers moved to the outside, their empty ore plates facing the blockade. The condensers vented thin streams of hydrogen ahead, making the convoy look as if its tanks had ruptured. Then she ordered every ship to keep accelerating. Akran hailed within seconds. Your next approach will be treated as an attack. We're losing containment, Mara said. If we break, the tanks rupture. Jettison them. The release systems were damaged by your very careful shooting. Behind Akran, Vor glanced at her. His eyes lowered briefly toward his tactical display. He had understood. Akran had not. Then die, carrying your stolen cargo, the prefix said. The fleet fired its 4th salvo. All plates glowed, buckled, and split. A freighter lost its bridge. Halberd rolled between half-light and a beam meant for its engines. The shot carved through the human escort's flank, opening 4 decks. Reza survived, but 50 of her crew did not. Still, the convoy advanced. Hydrogen mist spread through the blockade's formation. One Selen cruiser moved half a degree to avoid it, creating a narrow lane. Another tracked the crippled King Harbor and fired across its bow, nudging the hospital ship's surviving tug toward that same lane. Not enough to escape, enough to come closer. On her flight, Selly's fever worsened. The light beneath her skin turned violet, a sign of organ shock. Ilya carried her into the seed hold, where cold air lay in banks between silver vaults. Hundreds of children and elderly refugees crowded there now, protected by the ship's thickest walls. A human physician, named Jonah Vale, examined Sely with a scanner held together by tape. "She needs immersion support," he said. "All the pools are full." "I know." "Then take someone out." Jonah looked at him. "Which one?" Ilya's anger collapsed. Every pool contained a child just as sick. Sely opened her eyes. "Grandfather's coming?" Ilya took her hand. "He is ahead of us." "Why is he shooting?" "Because billions outweighed one child." Because the Ha had found the exact distance between love and duty and driven a blade into it. Because Ilya had once praised the logic of Selen civilization to human diplomats, explaining that their people survived by measuring needs without sentiment. "He is making a road," Jonah said, before Ilya could answer. Sely looked toward him. "It's a terrible road," the human continued, adjusting the blanket around her. "But your grandfather is making it one piece at a time." "How do you know?" "Because Captain Venn keeps flying on it." Jonah emptied his own suit's emergency hydration reservoir into a shallow basin, added cooling salts, and wrapped the soaked membrane around Selly's throat. It was not immersion support, but her fever patterns faded from violet to blue. "You need that water," Ilya said. Human ships ran dry and hot. Everyone knew it. So does she. The next impact threw them both against a sieve vault. Across the hold, one of the atmospheric condensers broke loose from its braces. It weighed 12 tons. It slid toward a crowd of children. Jonah ran at it. Ilya shouted, but the physician did not try to stop the machine. He threw himself across the emergency track and jammed a steel support bar into the floor notch. The condenser hit it. The bar bent. Jonah disappeared beneath the machine's corner. The condenser stopped less than an arm's length from the children. Ilya and 6 others levered it back. Jonah's leg was crushed below the knee. He remained conscious while they pulled him free. "My kit," he gasped. "Ilya brought it. Not for me. Selly's membrane dries in 20 minutes. Blue packet, then half the clear one." Even broken, the human was still extending the road. The convoy reached missile range. Akren stopped pretending restrained. Car command codes opened the Orison launch cells, and hundreds of weapons rose from the silver hulls. Vor's face appeared in a small unauthorized window on Mara's display. There was no sound. He placed one hand over his chest, then opened it toward her. The gesture completed the passage oath. Until the last living soul is carried, no vessel turns away. Then the window vanished. "Missiles inbound," Hale said. 2 minutes. Mara authorized defensive fire. Halberd and the Wayfarer filled space with interceptors. Mining lasers carved missiles apart. Civilian ships rolled behind ore shields, but there were too many weapons. Mara watched their paths and saw another pattern. Most targeted drives and communications. Some, under direct car guidance, aimed for habitat rings. Selen point defense beams struck those first, destroying their own missiles while allowing the disabling shots through. Explosions walked down the convoy. Long promise broke in half. Escape capsules spilled from it like sparks. The maroon freighter master held his ruined ship together long enough to rotate the inhabited section away from the radiation front, Then his reactor went dark. Kind Harbor took a missile through its surgical deck. Half-light lost gravity. The Wayfarer's forward armor split, and atmosphere howled from 3 compartments before the door sealed. Mara's shoulder struck the command table. For a moment she could not feel her left hand. Range to fleet? 28,000 kilometers, Hale said. Blood ran from his scalp. Too close for another full missile spread. Their beam weapons have us. Signal from Palace. The old plans arrived in a compressed burst. Mara sent them to Ilya and every surviving engineer. The root habitats had been rebuilt by a joint Selen-human team. Car custodial regulators sat at the center of each orbital engine, but the emergency architecture included a mechanical bypass. It had been added after a human inspector refused to certify any life support system that could not be opened by hand. The bypasses were inside the habitats. Akran's command network could lock every electronic door leading to them. "Can the people inside reach the regulators?" Mara asked. "If they know where to go," Hale said. "We have no channel to Selen. Car control blocks external traffic." Mara looked at the blue oath cord. Vor's hidden feed traveled through an old naval network the car had overlooked. A memory knot had limited range, but the fleet was now close. "Ilya," she called, "can the cord transmit more than status?" His answer came through static. "A short fleet command, if joined to an admiral's knot. We have 2 ends, but neither is Vor's command authority. Selly's knot was given by blood. Selen legacy codes recognize a household bearer." Mara glanced at Hale. "Send the bypass plans to her flight." Understanding hitting. "You're going to use the fleet as a relay into the root habitats. If Vor accepts the command, and Akran sees it, he'll drop a route." "Unless people inside reach the bypass first," Ilya said. They needed time. They had none. Fleet temperatures flashed red across the hidden status feed. 3 destroyers were approaching reactor scram. Once their power died, car custodial programs would take direct control of reserve cells. Akran would gain ships without crews able to interfere. Mara opened a public channel. "Admiral Vor, we are carrying coolant. Enough for your fleet. Let our tankers dock, and we can keep your ships alive." Akran answered. "You continue to mistake them for allies." "No," Mara said. "You do." The prefect's jaw opened. Mara transmitted a fuel transfer offer to every Selen ship, using the Oath Cord network. It included exact approach vectors. Each vector ran dangerously close to a convoy vessel. Vor did not respond. One by one, his captains did. A destroyer drifted out of the wall and rolled its overheated belly toward a mining hauler. A cruiser followed. Then 5 more ships broke formation, not to let the convoy pass, but to meet it. Akran raised his gold wrist. The lead destroyer fired on the Wayfarer. Its beam passed through Mara's forward sensor mast and cut the car observer antenna from Vor's flagship behind her. For 8 seconds, Akran's control network went blind. 8 seconds was enough. Mara sent the bypass plans through the hidden feed. Vor authenticated Selly's household knot and hurled the transmission towards Selen on the fleet's most powerful folded space transmitter. The message was only 12 words long. "Open the old red doors. Pull both iron levers. Hold them down." Then, Akran's network returned. He triggered the first root habitat. On Mara's display, 4 distant orbital tracks appeared. One changed from blue to red. Millions of lives began falling toward their planet. The reply from Selen would take 23 minutes. The habitat would strike atmosphere in 19. Akran had won the timing. He ordered the Orosum fleet to destroy the convoy. This time, Vor's officers could not bend the targeting codes. Every Selen ship received the same route-linked command: fire or watch another habitat fall. Weapons charged. The convoy's 2 escorts prepared to answer. Mara saw the shape of the final choice. They could use the hydrogen cloud to ignite a corridor, cripple the nearest Selen ships, and force their way toward the passage. Some convoy vessels might survive. The fleet, already overheating, would lose coolant and power. It would not be able to reach Selen in time to save the falling route, even if the bypass succeeded. Or the humans could complete the docking approaches, give away the coolant, and remain inside the blockade. Reza called from halberd. Her face was grey with smoke. "Captain, release our weapons. We can open the lane." "You can open it for 6 ships. 6 is more than none. Halvlight won't be one of them." The refugee carrier's engines were failing. Kind Harbor had no engines at all. Reza closed her eyes. She had family aboard neither ship. Most of her surviving crew were human. The lane offered them life. "What are your orders?" she asked. "Use your thrusters to push Kind Harbor toward the cruisers, then extend coolant lines to the ships firing at us." "Yes." Reza gave a tired, furious laugh. "I hope history understands you better than I do. History isn't here. No, just us." She looked off screen and shouted, "Helm, get us under that hospital." Halberd turned away from the escape lane. Across the convoy, captains made the same choice. Freighters lowered shields and exposed fuel couplings. Mining haulers crossed through weapons fire to reach Selen destroyers. The surviving tug released Kind Harbor only after a cruiser caught the hospital ship in a tractor field. Human and allied hulls came together at dangerous speed. Docking collars slammed shut. Coolant hoses uncoiled through clouds of debris. Crew members in pressure suits leaped across gaps with lines clipped to their waists. A Selen gunner fired a beam past a human tanker. A heartbeat later, that tanker locked to the gunner's ship and began pumping the fluid that would stop its reactor from melting. The convoy had not flown toward the fleet to break it. It had flown toward the fleet because distance was the one thing Akren needed them to keep. Mara brought the Wayfarer alongside Vor's flagship. Their armor scraped, shrieking through the hull, magnetic clamps engaged. Akran tried to separate the ships, Vor forting through the controls. Thrusters fired in opposing bursts, spinning both vessels toward the radiation front. "Boarding passage aligned," Hale said. "Not sealed. Gap is 2 meters. I'm going across. Your shoulder is dislocated. Then I won't use that arm. You're the convoy commander, and Vor is the flute commander. We need both alive if the route's answer." Hale knew what she had not said. Akran's wristband had to be removed without triggering it. The old plans showed car control systems used paired biological contacts. If the wearer died, the custodial seal executed its last order. If the band was cut, the same thing happened. Someone had to force Akran to release it voluntarily. Mara stepped into the airlock with 6 security officers. Hale caught her good arm. "My brother's pod beacon just came on," he said. Relief almost folded her knees. "The Selen destroyer pulled him aboard," Hale continued. "He says they apologized for the inconvenience." Mara laughed once, painfully. "Tell him his timing is terrible." She crossed the gap. The flagship's gravity failed while she was in open space. Her boots hit the far hatch sideways. A Selen officer dragged her inside, then pressed a weapon into her hand. "Car guards hold the command deck," he said. "Admiral Vor is locked out of weapons control." "Where is Akran?" "Observation spine. He carries a direct transmitter." The radiation front struck the rear of the joined ships. It was not a wall, but a flood of charged particles, invisible until magnetic fields caught it and turned space green. Hull alarms screamed. The Wayfarer and the flagship shuddered as their shields combined unevenly. Smaller convoy ships hid in the magnetic wakes of larger Allied vessels. The Orison fleet, cooled and powered by the people it had attacked, spread its shields over the refugees. Mara's boarding team fought through the observation spine. Car guards had armored skins and weapons designed for narrow corridors. 2 humans fell at the first junction. The Selen officer took a blast through the chest and used his final breath to hold the door open. Mara reached the command deck with 3 people left. Vor was on his knees beneath the tactical display. Akran stood behind him, one stone-grey hand clamped around the admiral's throat. The gold band shone at his wrist. "You should have run," Akran told Mara. "So should you." He angled his weapon toward Vor. "Drop yours." Mara obeyed. Around them, the display counted down the falling route's orbit, 11 minutes, until atmospheric contact. No answer from Selen. Akran studied the joint ships, the coolant transfers, the fleet shields sheltering the convoy. "You gave them your fuel. Even if the route is saved, the radiation front will leave your ships unable to reach Palace." "We'll share. You have no agreement for that. We have docking lines. You believe proximity changes obligation? It makes it harder to lie about who is dying." Akran pressed his weapon against Vor's skull. "Admiral, order your ships to disengage their shields from the human vessels." Vor looked at Mara. "My granddaughter?" "Alive," Mara said. "Fevered. A human doctor gave her his water and his leg." The admiral's frills opened. Grief, pride, terror, Selen expressions had no single word for it. Akran struck him. "Give the order." Vor lowered his head. Mara saw his hand move against the deck, tracing the spiral crest of the compact in his own blood. He was not surrendering. He was preparing to die without authorizing the fleet's separation. Akran saw it too. "Your death changes nothing. The band retains command." "Then why haven't you killed him?" Mara asked. The prefect's eyes shifted to her. "The chain needs a living admiral's authorization," she said. "You told me that. You need him every time you change an order that affects the routes. If he dies, your last command continues, but you can't adapt. You can't make the fleet leave the convoy." Akran's weapon remained steady, and he cannot save the falling habitat. Maybe not. The countdown passed 10 minutes. Mara took one step closer. "Stop." She stopped. "You engineered Dima's star," a crude accusation. "You came for the archives, because the stellar monitors recorded your gravity engines. But the memory cylinders are distributed across 12 ships. Destroy us, and the evidence broadcasts automatically." It was a lie, though not entirely. The cylinders contained the monitor records, but their transmitters had been shattered. Akran hesitated. That was the foreshadowed truth behind the salvage claims. The car needed the witnesses and records erased. "You cannot broadcast through the radiation," he said. "Not to Palace, to your ships." His jaw plates opened slightly. Mara had noticed 3 cargo vessels behind the Orison formation when the first shots were fired. They had remained far from danger, their crews expecting to collect the convoy's cargo. They were still there, beyond the radiation front. "If your crews receive proof that the Dominion murdered a client world to collect its assets," Mara said, "do you think they keep obeying? Or do they wonder which of their worlds is already marked for collection?" Akran's eyes flicked toward the tactical display. Mara lunged. His shot burned through her side. Momentum carried her into him. They struck the command rail together. She gripped the gold band with her good hand. Akran was stronger. He lifted her and drove her against the rail. Her vision went white. Vor seized the prefect's weapon arm, and one of Mara's officers wrapped a restraint cable around his throat. Akran hurled both away. He raised the weapon toward Mara. She could have fired the pistol hidden at her ankle. At that range, it would kill him. Dead man trigger. Instead, she kicked the weapon from his hand and locked her fingers around a band. "Release it," she said. He struck her wounded side. She nearly blacked out. "Release it! Or what? You will not kill me." No, Mara tightened her grip. But he might. Vor had recovered the fallen weapon. Its muzzle pointed at Akran. The prefect looked from the admiral to the countdown. "You kill me? The route falls." Vor's hand did not shake. "It may fall anyway. Then save your people. You taught me I could save them only by becoming the weapon that killed my granddaughter." 9 minutes. The flagship rocked. On the tactical display, Halberd detached from Kind Harbor and accelerated toward the three distant cargo ships. Rez's escort was broken, leaking air, and nearly out of weapons. The car ships were undamaged. "What is she doing?" Akran asked. "Delivering the archives," Mara said. Reza transmitted on an open channel. "Car vessels, stand down and receive evidence cylinders. Refusal will be considered admission of participation in the destruction of Dima." The cargo ships turned their weapons on her. The Orison destroyer that had saved Hale's brother moved between them. Then another Allied ship joined it, and another. Akran's control band flashed as he tried to order them back. Four had not authorized the change. The ships ignored him. His certainty cracked. "Release the band," Mara said. "Order the route stabilized. I cannot reverse a custodial correction once initiated." "Then relinquish control and authenticate the evidence. Palace can force your Dominion to send override codes. Not in 9 minutes. Maybe not. But the other 3 routes live. Your crews live. You live." Vor stared at her. "You offer him life?" "Yes. He killed Dima. I know. He made me fire on children. I know." Akran's jaw plates opened in disbelief. "Why?" Mara's blood floated in small spheres where gravity had weakened. "Because if mercy only applies when it's easy, it isn't an oath. It's a preference." She did not know whether that was enough. She only knew killing him would complete the machinery he had built. Every choice Akran offered ended in death, because he believed no one would accept pain without passing it on. Mara refused to pass it on. The countdown reached 8 minutes. A signal burst from Selen. Route 2 manual bypass reached. Levers engaged. Orbital engines unresponsive. Local thrusters insufficient. They had opened the red doors. They had pulled the iron levers. They had cut Akran's control. But they were too late to stop the fall. Vor lowered his weapon a fraction. All the victory went out of him. Mara looked at the fleet status. 31 ships, freshly cooled. Their drives were still aligned roughly toward Selen from their desperate sprint. Individually, none could reach the route in 8 minutes. Their folded space transmitter had reached it in 23 because messages had no mass. Mass was the problem, or perhaps mass was the answer. "The gravity wakes," Mara said. Vor looked up. The Carthis Passage was a folded current. Ships entered by matching drive fields, each vessel riding the distortion created by the one ahead. The Orison fleet had crossed 2 unstable currents at impossible speed, because 31 ships had flown in a chained wake. Mara pulled the passage chart onto the display. If the fleet forms a synchronized drive ring around the route's signal and folds the local gradient, "We are here," Vor said. "The route is at Selen. We don't move the fleet to the habitat. We move the habitat's gravity vector to the fleet." Akran stared at the equations forming on the display. "That will drag the route through uncharted folded space. It will tear apart." "Not if the ring holds." "The tolerances require exact phase control. One ship fails, and all of you collapse into the passage." Mara looked at the coolant lines joining human vessels to Selen warships. At the physical network they had built while Akran watched only command codes. "One ship won't fail," she said. "They're sharing power." Vor understood first. The convoy's atmospheric condensers could shape immense magnetic fields. The mining haulers carried gravitic anchors for moving asteroids. The hospital ship's precision cocks could synchronize surgical lasers within a fraction of a pulse. None was a weapon. Together, connected to the Orison fleet, they were the pieces of a machine no navy would ever design. A rescue machine. 7 minutes. Vor issued commands through the Oath network. Akran could not block them while the admiral remained physically linked to the flagship's manual controls. Ships moved around the convoy, forming a vast ring inside the radiation storm. Coolant hoses stretched, power cables locked. Mining anchors deployed like dark petals. Hale calculated phase timing from the Wayfarer. Ilya translated the old Selen drive notation. Jonah, sedated on her flight, woke long enough to explain how the hospital clocks could be slaved together without overloading. The route habitat signal flickered across space. 6 minutes. Akran looked at the ring and then at his gold band. You still need the custodial orbital data. It is encrypted here. Give it to us, Mara said, and be executed by my dominion. I said you live. I didn't say you go free. That is not mercy. It's the only honest kind I have. He could still refuse. If the route fell, the compact might fracture. Billions would blame humans for pressing forward. Workers would blame how many balls would save. Exactly as car policy intended. Akran touched the band. He was all ready, and he was proud to be a bad one. Perhaps he saw the 3 cargo ships retreating from Reza and the shield of Allied vessels around her. Perhaps he understood that his own crews had received the Dama evidence now, and the Dominion's clean story was already dead. Perhaps he simply wanted to survive. He pressed 2 fingers to the gold surface. The band opened. Vor caught it before it struck the deck. Custodial orbit key, Akran said. Sequence 9, crown inversion. 5 minutes. The drive ring charged. Every ship groaned as fields overlapped. The radiation front turned from green to a blinding blue halo. Mara felt the deck pull in 3 directions. Across the joined formation, people strapped children to bulkheads, held coolant valves open, and braced damaged cables with gloved hands. Half-Light's main coupling began to fail. Ilya saw frost burst from the pipe above the seed hold. If the coupling broke, the refugee carrier would drop out of the ring. The phase imbalance would destroy them all. He dragged himself through failing gravity toward the manual lock. Seli clung to a cargo strap behind him, her shellbird pressed against her chest. You have to go back, Ilya told her. You can't reach it. I can. He could not. His left leg had been cut by flying metal. The lock hung 2 body lengths beyond his reach, across a shaft where gravity shifted like a tide. Seli was smaller, lighter. No, he said, as he understood her intention. She tied the blue oath cord around her waist and handed him the other end. Grandfather made a road, she said. Then she pushed away. She floated across the shaft while Ilya fed out the cord. A gravity pulse pulled her toward the wall. She struck hard, lost the shellbird, and caught a pipe with one hand. The coupling alarm rose to a scream. Seli! She swung, reached the manual lock, and pulled. The jaws closed around the coolant pipe. Ilya held her back by the oath cord. When she reached him, she was laughing and crying at once. He held her against his chest as the ship shuddered into phase. 3 minutes. The fleet fired its drives. Space folded inward. For an instant, the falling root habitat appeared around them as a ghost, a city of spinning towers and oceans held inside glass, its night side glittering with millions of lights. Then, the image stretched. The fleet ring caught its gravity, not the habitat itself, and pulled sideways with every engine it possessed. The forces were monstrous. 2 mining haulers lost their anchors and spun away. A Selen cruiser broke formation to catch one, risking the phase line. Halberd fired its last grapples into both ships and held them together. On the Wayfarer, the command rail tore loose. Mara fell. Overall. 4 caught her wounded arm, dislocating it again, but keeping her from being thrown into the open shaft. The flagship's reactor exceeded limits. Cut us loose, Law ordered. The ring can survive one gap for 4 seconds. It can't, Mara said. My ship is taking power from yours. We will destroy you. She looked at the overload map. He was right about the reactor, wrong about the answer. Wayfarer, emergency separation, she called. Hale's voice came back. Clamps will release. Not from the flagship. Separate our command and habitation sections. Leave engineering attached. There were 87 people in Wayfarer's engineering hull. If it stayed connected, they would stay with it. Hale understood. We can evacuate 60. You have 90 seconds. Vor seized her collar. You cannot discard your crew to save my ship. I'm not saving your ship. I'm saving the ring. You gave us coolant. Your escort saved ours. How much of your species' blood makes an oath valid? As much as the people keeping it choose. She opened a channel to engineering. Chief Ochoa appeared, arm wrapped from the steam burn on half-light, before she had transferred back. We heard, Ochoa said. Evac pods launching. Someone has to hold the bypass relays manually. How many? 4. Mara could not make the order. That was the cost hidden inside every grand act, 4 names spoken later in 4 quiet rooms. Ochoa saw the refusal on her face. Captain, we flew toward them too. The channel closed. Wayfarer split along emergency seams. Its forward sections drifted free with the pods. The engineering hull remained clamped to Vor's flagship, engines and reactor feeding the ring. Through a hull camera, Mara saw 4 suited figures at the exposed relay bank, holding levers against the pull of folded space. 1 minute. The root habitat's fall slowed. Its orbital track bent away from Selen's atmosphere, but not enough. The fleet's formation began to collapse as power drained. Human freighters dumped every remaining reserve into the shared lines. Selen warships lowered shields, accepting radiation burns to feed their drives. A crown bound beside the command rail shouted over the alarms. Release the route, you will lose both fleet and convoy. Vor looked at Mara. This was the last choice. Let go and save those in the ring, or hold and risk everyone for a habitat filled with strangers. Mara thought of Ochoa's 4 engineers, of Hale's brother drifting behind an enemy-shaped shield, of Jonah's crushed leg and Seli flying across the shaft. Every one of them had already answered. Hold, she said. Vor placed his bloodied hand over hers on the drive control. Hold, he agreed. The ring gave everything. The root habitat missed the atmosphere by 11 kilometers. It crossed the planet's upper sky as a false dome, oceans shining through glass, towers lit from within. Its passage tore storms across Selen and pulled tides over coastal walls. But it did not fall. Emergency thrusters caught the new orbit. Millions inside remained alive to see the stars swing beneath their feet. In the Carthis Passage, the rescue ring came apart. Wayfarer's engineering hull burned out. The 4 figures at the relay bank vanished in white light. Vor's flagship lost power and rolled. Ships scattered through the fading radiation front, some caught by grapples, others by the last weak fields of atmospheric condensers. Then, one by one, their beacons returned. 29 Orison ships answered. 19 convoy ships answered. For a long time, no one spoke on the command deck. Mara lay against the broken rail, blood soaking her uniform. Vor knelt beside her. On the display, Hearthlight's beacon pulsed weakly, but steadily. Your granddaughter locked the coupling, Ilya reported through static. She says you still owe her the new water. Vor folded forward until his brow touched the deck. Mara closed her eyes. Palace Patrol arrived 3 hours later. By then, human and Selen crews had crossed so many airlocks that no ship held only its own people. Kind Harbor's surviving doctors treated Orison gunners. Selen engineers brought the Wayfarer's separated command section under tow. The cargo vessels surrendered after their crews received Dema's stellar records and learned Akran had been captured alive. Within a year, 11 client worlds demanded mechanical bypasses in every custodial system. 3 Dominion fleets refused orders to suppress them. The Empire did not collapse in a glorious battle. It came apart in inspection bays, courtrooms, maintenance shafts, and the quiet moment when frightened crews discovered they could pull an iron lever by hand. The compact changed too. Admiral Vore offered his resignation and submitted to judgment for the 43 refugees killed aboard Long Promise, for the wounds on how to coffin for evil, which could be a master for something that could not be done. The refugee families refused to let the court call him innocent. Coercion explained his actions. It did not resurrect the dead. They also refused to call him traitor. His sentence was service without command. He spent 6 years directing the reconstruction of Dima's settlements on Pallis, where the atmospheric condensers turned poisoned plains into rain country. He arrived each morning without rank cords and left each night after the last work crew. Sally met him at the first new lake. She walked with a brace because the gravity pulse aboard her flight had damaged her spine. Jonah Vale walked beside her on a metal leg. Ilya carried the shellbird, repaired with a line of gold along its broken wing. Vore knelt at the water and could not speak. Sally tied the old blue oath cord around his wrist. "You made most of the road," she told him. Other people made the rest. Mara watched from beneath a shade canopy, one arm permanently weak and silver grafting visible along her side. 47 names had been carved into the stones at the lake's edge, the convoy dead, the Allied dead, and the 4 engineers who held the relays. No names were arranged by species or uniform. Hale stood with his brother. Razor stood beside the Selen destroyer captain who had blocked the car guns. They still argued over which of them had saved the other. The new passage accords were signed there, not in a capital. They prohibited foreign control of civilian life support systems, required manual access to every planetary safeguard, and created mixed rescue commands whose authority could not be owned by a single government. But the clause remembered most was the shortest. No distress call could be denied because the caller had once been an enemy. Years later, when ships entered the Carthis Passage, they saw a field of navigation lights marking the place where the convoy met the guns. The lights formed 2 lines, flying toward each other. Pilots unfamiliar with the battle often mistook the pattern for a collision warning. Those who knew the story understood it was a promise. No one drifts alone.